Сайн байцгаана уу хүн төлөвчтэй. Өнөөдөр манай Defacto-ны төвлөгийн зочноор Швейцар улсын иргэн Анита Фаарни оролцож байна.
Анита Фаарни Олон улсын Тахь Группийн Удирдах Зөвлөлийн гишүүн. Америк нэгдсэн улсад төрж өссөн Ohioгийн Oberlin коллежийг Франц хэл мэргэжлэр бакалавр зэрэгтээ төгсжээ. Монгол улсын их сургууль Отгон тэнгэр, Ховд аймгийн их сургуулиудын хүндэт доктор, Швейцарын эмэгтэйчүүдийн үндэсний зөвлөлийн олон улсын харилцаа хариуцсан ерөнхийлөгч, олон улсын эмэгтэйчүүдийн зөвлөлд Европыг хариуцсан редактор, Америк нэгдсэн улсын Чикаго мужийн Illinois технологийн их сургуульд захирал, Швейцар дахь улаан загалмайн нийгэмлэгт нарийн бичгийн дарга зэрэг албыг хашиж байжээ. 1998 оноос Монгол улсад төсөл хэрэгжүүлж хөдөө орон нутагт амьдардаг 100 гаруй монгол эмэгтэй 1-2 жилийн хугацаанд Швейцарт Герман хэлний мэдлэг боловсролоо дээшлүүлсэн байна. 2010 оноос Олон улсын Тахь Группийн Удирдах Зөвлөлийн гишүүнээр ажиллаж эхэлжээ.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Very nice meeting you after you had 3 years of absence in Mongolia out of last 25 years of working with Mongolia. And it's our second interview. 5 years ago we had another one. And during this time you have been creating this book. Let's talk about what you do with Mongolia and why.
First of all, let me say it's very nice to be able to be here again. I've missed coming here and seeing my friends and seeing what's going on. As you know, I have had for 20-some years an exchange program inviting students of German to spend a year of study in Switzerland. That program I gave to 2 other people to run 3 years ago. And so I had, with these years of COVID, staying at home, I had time to do something else.
I'd like to remind people that you had trained German studying young Mongolian women, over 100 of them having 1 year study in Germany, staying in homes.
In Switzerland.
Right? In Switzerland.
108. And there were about 45 teachers of English or German who spent 3 months in Switzerland of additional training. Many of these former German students are now teaching here in Ulaanbaatar or in Ölgi or Hoofd. They are also working for GIZ or for Goethe Institute. So it was, spending a year in Switzerland was a good push for their career.
Let's talk about, we should also talk about the Tahь Foundation. You are happy with that?
Yes, I'm a member of the board of the International Tahь Group. And this year we're celebrating 30 years of reintroduction. The Swiss program reintroduced the Tahь in Great Gobi B, but we work closely together with Holstein and with Chomintal. And we're very pleased that there are over 500 Tahь in Mongolia now.
Recently there was an announcement that the largest amount of Tahь in the world now are in Mongolia.
That, I believe, is true.
Reaching about 500, which is a great job, I think, not only for people, but for those Tahь which had disappeared, actually, from Mongolia. And it was reintroduced from Europe, it was in Prague Zoo, I think. Initially.
Well, it was in many zoos and many parks, and they were selected to come back genetically, so there was a good mixture. And then they were released in these 3 different areas. Luckily now there's a large number of foals, of young foals born this year, so the number is increasing rapidly.
So nice watching them.
Yes.
Watching them, and many people now, tourists, come also to watch, and I think it's a great job, great project. Right. Congratulations, thank you.
Thank you.
Now let's talk about these books. And I have read some of them, and very strange phenomena in this book. You are introducing to Mongolia about Mongolian problems that are to be solved somehow, which is stopping our progress. So let's start from this book, Ankma's Answer. Tell us about this story.
Ankma's answer is her reaction to... Ankma's a young teacher. looking for a job in Erdinet. Let me first say that all of these stories are fiction. They're based on things that I have learned over my 24 years coming to Mongolia. So there is fact behind it, but the stories themselves are from my imagination, based on fact. Ankma is a young teacher who wants to get a job in Erdinet. And the first school director who interviews her would like to have her come. She has good qualifications. But he says you have to pay 2 million tugruk to get the job. This is a phenomenon here, a phenomenon of corruption here in Mongolia, which really should be discussed.
Not only for teacher, but for any public positions.
For many public positions, for hospitals, for other jobs, one has to pay a bribe. I know that many of my former exchange students have children in kindergarten, and they had to pay the kindergarten to accept their child because there are so few places. And that's something which Ankma does not agree to doing.
And what she does?
She opens her own little language institute, but has, of course, all the problems. I mean, it can't be easy. Financial problems, accounting, which she doesn't know how to do, unreliable people, that kind of thing.
So each of these episodes are based on a concrete story? Are
based on a putting together of many stories, yes.
Together, okay. And this book is, by the way, all these books are distributed free of charge.
These books are not for sale.
It is said that it is not for sale.
Right. They are printed here in Ulaanbaatar in editions of 10,000 copies. They are distributed free of charge to pupils in a particular class, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, determined by the difficulty of the text, in 7 IMAGs. In all the schools, so that basically, if it works out correctly, every pupil in the 11th grade should have a copy of that book in those IMAGs.
In very simple English, first part, and second part is in Mongolian.
The Mongolian translation is at the back because it helps the pupils, of course, to read, but also because these books will be in homes. The pupil takes it home, and I hope that his brothers and sisters, that his parents, that all his friends will read the story and discuss the problems that are raised in the book.
And these books are also illustrated by Sabine Hui.
That one is Sabine Hui. She is an illustrator from Switzerland. The first 2 books were illustrated by Rina Joost, also a professional illustrator. In fact, this picture of a classroom in Hoofd was exhibited in New York in an exhibit of illustrators.
Who illustrated this one?
This was Rina Joost, a young illustrator from Switzerland.
From Switzerland.
Right.
Are they visiting, or have they visited Mongolia, or they do it based on your
Rina Joost has visited Mongolia. Sylvia Fuchs, who did this one, and another one has not. But I gave them a lot of pictures. She has never seen a horsehead violin, but she drew it very well. So there's a lot of research which they can do.
And a lot of funds are also behind that. Who is funding all these projects?
Well, it's difficult to find funding for it. A few Lions clubs and Rotary clubs, Asia Foundation, Mongolia Education Foundation has supported them.
Okay.
Friends of mine and family, and I make up whatever I don't find. And I had a wonderful news this morning. The whole group of my former exchange students decided to collect money for these books and collected over 5 million tugruk, which was excellent.
Okay.
It was a wonderful surprise.
This is a good thanks back.
Yes. Yes, they're very grateful.
Yeah. So let's talk about this Otnos Olympics.
My feeling about the Olympic competitions here in English or mathematics, I think they go in the wrong direction because the teachers tend to select 2 or 3 excellent pupils, perhaps with important parents, and work with them, and the rest of the class of 30 or 40 is forgotten. So it's concentrating on a couple of pupils instead of teaching everyone.
Also, speaking about this Olympics and all the education system, how do you find knowing all these changes, evolutions, I would say, in education in Mongolia for the last 25 years? What are your major observations?
It's going very, very slowly. There are occasional changes in the structure, but I think what's lacking is a real change in the content. I see that especially in kindergarten and primary school, that the classes are so big. In kindergarten, children are often sitting all the time. Kindergarten with us should be basically learning to get along together, learning respect, learning to play together, to help one another. Not learning the alphabet and all of that, that can come later. But this basic respect for your neighbor, someone maybe you don't like, this basic respect is often lacking. And that goes all the way through society. Many of the people I know say that in their offices, be it government offices or private business offices, there's too much envy, there's too much fighting against each other rather than really working together. If you network with people, if you work together, everything goes better.
It is a participatory.
Correct.
Part of the education is missing.
Is missing.
Yeah, so that once you participate yourself with your mind, and for that not necessary to make Olympic champions or, that competition is too much, right?
I have a story which hasn't been published yet about new teaching methods. And in this, a difficult class is turned into a very interested class, and they learn to help each other. So the ones who are better in mathematics help the ones who are less good, but someone else is good in history. And in the end, they all pass the test, and they are happy not because each individual did, but because the whole class passed the test. They worked together.
You were born yourself in the U.S., though
right.
You are a Swiss citizen, you live there. How about the Swiss school in that regard doing?
I'll take the example of one of my daughters who was a teacher. She's still a teacher, but she's not in schools at the moment. When there was a problem like bullying or students disagreeing or fighting in class, which often happens here too, everything stopped. She sat them down and they discussed what went wrong. And they discussed how to solve this personal problem between maybe 2 or 4 people. It's taken seriously.
How nice.
Yes, it really, this working together, this respect for the other people. In fact, in that story that I wrote, some of the kids at the beginning to say, I was taught to respect my grandmother, I was taught to respect my parents and my older brothers, but why should I respect a classmate I don't like? And they learn then that respect for everybody is better in the end.
Exactly. Well, this is such a topic where in the kindergarten, children, if they have different opinions, they're working, talking. Instead, they said the teacher is always right. That principle's to be changed.
And teachers, in my opinion, must listen. Even in primary, secondary schools, teacher must listen to what the pupils are saying and discuss with them the different opinions.
By the way, about listening, one of the communication way is reading, writing, then listening, watching, right? But all of them are taught in schools except listening. Mm-hmm. So that's why
that's interesting.
Listening is basis of understanding, right? Let's talk about this Nirgui's new neighbor.
Right.
What is that about?
That's about a young boy in the 7th grade who's not liked by many people because he's very smart and he pleases the teacher. He wants a new neighbor in his apartment building and he gets one, but he gets a very nasty boy who's a classmate, a boy who steals. We talk about dorm? Dorm? Student dorm? In the dormitory, no, in the apartment building. In the apartment building, In the apartment building where he lives with his mother.
Okay.
And actually, in many of my stories, the pupils live with single mothers, which is often the case here. And I also raise the problem of domestic violence and that kind of thing. This new neighbor steals and he lies and he isn't interested in being with the others. And in the end, he steals a mobile phone and is arrested by the police. And so Nergui wonders why this boy turned out that way and talks with his mother about the police, about courts, about corruption. What are prisons like? Where does a young boy go to prison if he does something like that? And what are his chances for a future if he can't finish school? So there's no solution to the problem, but I'm hoping that it will be discussed.
Okay, let's talk about Mungsult's move.
Mungsult is a young girl who lives in Ulaanbaatar. Her mother works for the Ministry of Environment, and she has to move to Hoofd. And of course, being from Ulaanbaatar, she doesn't want to go to the end of the world. But on moving, she discovers that living in the countryside, in a town in the countryside, is often much better than living in the polluted city with bad air. In Hoofd, she's able to go out, go out at night herself. It's a different kind of life.
And people are different, more nice, more friendly.
Yes, possibly, but they have more freedom. The children have more freedom because it's safer.
That's another. I mean, all of these issues are the social problems we are facing. Sooner or later, we need to solve.
Mungsult's mother tells Mungsult that the people in the office all seem to want to move to Ulaanbaatar. And she tells them, don't move. There are not many jobs in Ulaanbaatar. The air is bad. There's traffic. You're better off just staying in a nice place like Hoofd.
This, we call it reverse immigration.
Yes.
That's what is happening in many countries.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we make countryside with more tolerable infrastructure, at least good sanitation, jobs, then it's so easy now actually to do that. So, speaking about that, Mongolians made new law on cooperatives. And that cooperatives, people now will cooperate. They have to cooperate based on their land, pasture land. And you are being from Switzerland, you're including probably yourself as a member of many cooperatives, kind of.
Kind of, yes.
Yeah. Even there are car-sharing cooperatives existing, right? And based on the previous conversation about the participation of a child in being himself, expressing himself, developing himself, cooperative can be good impact on the society to solve all these problems. What's your opinion?
I think working together is always a good thing. I think some of the development agencies, like the Swiss Development Cooperation Agency, is working to get people in local communities to work together, to solve problems.
Created already some cooperatives.
Right.
So very...
For pasture land management and things like that.
In Switzerland, there is one of the oldest village cooperative. It was in the book of the Nobel laureate book about the behavioral economy. A lady who got that prize was mentioning about that Swiss village where they agreed to care all together, all the pasture land, including this
steep slopes.
Yes,
yeah.
And this turned out on problem too. So they had that taken together, and if they put more than agreed amount of cows on the pasture land, you pay more taxes.
Yes.
I think this is the economic way.
This kind of thing will be important in Mongolia because you suffer from climate change.
The most, yes.
You suffer a great deal. What I have seen that's very positive in the various places I've been this trip is there are more trees and they're being cared for. There's more greenery. But Mongolia will have severe problems. And of course, there's still too many animals.
Yes. So the control of animals amount.
Right.
And herds amount in particular for better pasture land management.
Right. I don't think there should be awards for having more than 1,000 animals. It should be awards for having fewer animals and taking better care of them.
I don't like many awards.
True.
Including the medals for women.
And especially for medals for women for having many children. There is so much pressure here from mothers, from grandmothers, that young women must have children. And that's not, in my opinion, that's not the way it should be.
Regarding those who are not getting a baby, then people talk.
Yes.
How is that in Switzerland?
That's not the case anymore.
And
of course, women in Switzerland wait until they're in their very late 20s or 30s. My daughters were both 40 when they had their first children. They already had careers. They were solid. They knew what they could do, and then it was time to have children. I think here many of the very young people, 22, 23, they still have to get established, prove to themselves
having no
that
jobs,
they can
no money, then get married, then
there's a certain independence they have to learn.
Then it is a great new social problems are appearing as a result of this unplanned management. During the socialist time, it was different case because no market economy, no personal freedom. It was a different case. Let's talk about the Pujas Passion.
Pujas Passion is about a young boy who was treated unfairly in secondary school. He's an excellent musician. And for performance, for television, another boy who played less well was selected because his father owned the local clinic. So the school director took the boy who played less well. And Puja is furious and goes to his his grandfather to discuss this. And the grandfather says, don't worry about what other people think. You know you're a good player. If you keep working hard, you'll be successful. So don't care about what other people think. In the second part of the book, he returns from Europe to Ulaanbaatar for a television interview because he's a world-famous player. He lives in Munich with his partner, so there's a question of two men living together. He needs to buy an apartment for his mother because his father is abusive. So there's a question of domestic violence and alcoholism. And Puja has to decide, do I fit more in Europe, where I can earn a proper living and live with my partner, or shall I come back to Mongolia, which would be very difficult. So it's this whole question of where is home, what do I do, what are the problems, how can, a lot of different problems, and basic fairness.
How long ago it was distributed?
That was distributed last year and is still being distributed. That was the third of the books. The last three, most recent three, have just been printed, and they will be distributed when schools open in the fall.
Okay. The last one, Pujas trip.
Pujas trip was the first one I wrote. It's because we needed, for the Tachh, we needed a book about them. And it's the story, again, of a young girl from Ulaanbaatar who has to go with her mother in the school vacation for 3 days to Tachintal, doesn't want to go. But when she goes to Tachintal, she meets the daughter of this park director, And the daughter of the park director tells her a lot about the animals, about the dangers of mining, about all the problems and the nice things there. And so when Tuya goes back to Ulaanbaatar with her mother, she's very glad that she took the trip. And she knows a great deal more about the great Gobi bee, about the Tachh, about other animals, and about mining and such things.
Very interesting. Each book reflects a life of many people, but in such a sequences that it became kind of a small movie in a way.
And the fact is that I think there are very few books available which are about young Mongolians today. They're legends, they're fairy tales, but there's very little about young Mongolians and their positions and their problems today, and of course very little in English.
Through formation of people, formation age, adolescent, this time. And that's why this book is for probably from 8 years old to maybe 18 years old.
People start English is required as of the 5th grade, so those are, I think, already 11 or 12. And in the 5th grade, they still can't read something like this. So the easiest book is going to the 7th grade.
All right. Let's say these books are distributed. It's a free free distribution. Will be available in at least the library of schools.
Possibly, yes. I hope so.
Let's say, and what's your plan after this?
I have 3 or 4 stories which are already ready to be for the layout to be done. I want them all to be similar, although they're different illustrators. One Mongolian illustrator I'm working with now too. So I will continue to write. There are
6 books.
These are 6 published. There are 3 more, maybe 4 more that will be published this year. And as long as whenever I'm here, I listen, and I get these ideas for new stories.
Kind of, when you are listening, you do the notes every night, and how things keep on rolling.
I do take notes either when I'm talking with people or in the evening when I return to my room. It's not always clear exactly how a story is going to go, but usually I find ways to bring these different things in, whether it's a question of there being more green space, of better buildings, or of traffic jams. Somehow I can bring it in.
Anita, my final question about you. I know you are getting 80.
I'm a dinosaur.
80 years old. 80
Right.
years. No, I'm talking about your age in particular because we want to see more Mongolians at a year of 80, to be at the age of 80, to be active as you do. What is the secret? How you come that you are so active at this age? Keep writing. What makes you that energetic?
I must say I'm in a very privileged position. I haven't had to be employed for many years so that I have time to do this.
You were a professor at several universities before.
No, just an honorary professor. I did teach for a while in Taiwan. That was my original interest in Asia. I think keeping active, getting friends, being curious. And I think that's what's important for teachers. The teacher's job is to make pupils curious, so they want to learn. And I would like to learn, so therefore I listen. I see many parents here who are on their smartphones instead of listening to their children. And I think listening, as you said, is extremely important.
Okay, with a small anecdote. There was electric cut out.
Yes.
One evening.
There often is.
Yes, and next morning, a young man told to his friend, last night all electricity is gone. We could not work on phone, and I had to talk to my family. Turned out they are not so bad people.
Yes, I think more people should discover that.
Thank you so much.
I thank you.
Thank you for the job doing for Mongolians. And I think it will change the life of many people, the way they look at the life, and many senior people who should be more energetic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jargal.
За хүн төзөгчтэй өнөөдөр манай Defacto нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор Швейцар улсын иргэн Монголын олон жил ирж ажиллаж бидний нийгмийн асуудлыг бас нэг ингмээр юм гэж шийдвэр гаргах гэж оролдож байгаа эмэгтэй байна. Анита Фаарни баярлалаа.
Thank you.